Hello and welcome to my session at the Scottish Summit 2021. This is actually my third time speaking at the Scottish Summit, and I'm pleased today to be talking about how to create a learning culture in your organisation. Before we get going, I'd like to say thanks to our sponsors. We've got Red Spire, who I've met before, and they've sponsored the event last year as well. Hitachi Solutions, DQ Global, Proximo 3, Script Runner and Agilicis. Also, Pact are sponsoring. They've given us some books, including copies of my book on PL200 exam prep. And if you stay to the end of this session, you get a chance to win one of two copies. So don't go away. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Julian Sharp. I've been involved in Dynamics since it was first released. I work as a trainer and solution architect. I'm also a Microsoft MVP in business applications, and my Twitter handle is there, Julian Dynamics, if you want to make contact with me. Right. What's the purpose of today? Every employee, or providing every employee with the skills to perform their job, has never been more important. As the challenges faced in a rapidly changing world, and especially now with COVID, they're not going away, they're only going to increase. What's more important, however, is embedding a learning culture within your organisation, so workers and managers can adapt quickly to those changing situations. So this session is going to discuss what a learning culture is and the fact that it's more than training. It's not just training. That's a really key thing that hopefully you'll get out of this. Learning is not just training. It's a lot bigger than that. And as a trainer, for myself, I do a lot of training, but I do realise training is just part of a whole learning experience, our learning culture. So what we're going to do is look at what's involved in setting up a learning culture, what you can do in your company as well. So hopefully I'll lay out some steps that you can take to create your own learning culture to enhance your own organisation, even if it's just within your own department. So, the agenda. First of all, I'm going to look at what learning is not, and I'll probably spend a bit of time on that, just describing what learning is. You may have your own thinking about what is learning, what isn't, but then I'm going to try and describe what a learning culture is. It's very important you actually understand what we mean by a learning culture, what effects that has on an organisation. And then finally we'll look at how to create a learning culture. I'll also look at a couple of examples. And Microsoft actually announced something last week, Microsoft Viva, which I'm going to touch on as well. Added another little bit to my session. So let's begin. First of all, what learning isn't. Okay, and I probably could spend a lot of time talking about this, but in times gone past, when companies used to have training budgets, but training budgets were always limited. If you have a training budget at all, they're always limited. And typically, training was given as a reward to people. So, oh, you've done well, we'll send you on a training course. It was very much seen as something you gained from doing good at your job, which to me isn't always the best use of your limited training budget. So yes, this was the typical method where people were sent on external courses to be taught by people like myself. And it's expensive. There is a cost there, both in time of people being away from the job and the cost of the training. And so it's given as a reward, not to enhance that person, but that training may not have been relevant to them. It says, oh, you've got a training course, go away, have a week away at a hotel, etc. Not necessarily a great use of those limited training resources. It was often enforced or imposed on people. So learning, sending people on training courses they didn't think they need to do. I've had that. I've been sent on training courses myself when I worked in an organisation. A long time ago, I was trained to be an HPUX administrator. I knew what I was doing. I didn't need to go on the training, but it was a box ticking exercise and I had to go. We needed that. I wasn't allowed to, even though I was an experienced administrator on Unix, I was not allowed to, would not be allowed to touch the box anymore unless I had that training. I resented that. Did not impress me. Learning also tends to be haphazard. If you've been involved, or haphazard or last minute, it's very much, oh, we need this training now for whatever reason. It could be, I'm a Microsoft partner, we need to get our partner competency. oh, we've got to get 5 people trained and we've got like a month to do it before we renew. And it's like, okay, it's done in a rush, it's done chaotically, there's no plan. It's just again, we've got the imposition on people again. And that's why I put a big nuclear symbol on there. It causes a lot of problems. Other times when people do training, we're starting on a new product, we're implementing a new thing, get trained in it. And I've trained companies where they've just sent people on the training course. They really don't understand why they're there. They know they're doing the new product, but they don't know how they're going to be using it. So I'm training them, say, in Dynamics 365 sales, but they don't know what their role is going to be, how much is relevant to them. And again, that causes problems. They're unhappy. I'm unhappy. The managers are unhappy. Being unhappy is not great. And then often training is just used to cover up poor processes. I use the sticking plaster there. Cover up poor processes or poor systems. Yes, we've got a really bad system. We just need I need somebody who can learn this, who can be trained in it, so we can pawn it off on them. So training often is given, or not just given, but taken for the wrong reasons. So when people look at training, for me, training or learning is more than just finding the right mix of courses, workshops and books. So again, training or learning or skilling, whichever we want to call it, is more than just a going on a course. It's more than as a one-off thing. Attending a webinar. I mean, you've all probably been attending lots of webinars. I have over the last 12 months. Yes, and it's okay, but there's a lot more to learning than that. For me, we'll get on to what learning is later. And the issue is that some managers or executives pay lip service to learning. They often do the same things in the same way and get the same results. And they just do it without questioning. This is the way we do it. We send people on courses, or go read a book, or go watch this recording, without really giving people any understanding why they're doing it or what's necessary. I've actually sat with people who are having to go through online learning, and they're in this software that sort of monitors that they're actually watching it. So you have to click every minute. And I've been sat there talking to them. They're not actually watching it. They're just talking to me, and they're just pressing the button. It's ineffective. People need to understand why they're doing it, and creating a learning culture is more than just doing courses. So, I mean, individual courses, yes, they have value. And I'll say any course you come on with me, you'll get great value out of it. But as long as you know why you're there and you have clear objectives about why you're attending a training course. So, as a result of not doing learning wrong, you miss out on competitive advantage, because your competitors are going to be doing this better than you are. The best companies have at least 2 things in common. They all stand out in their respective sectors, but they also nurture top to bottom learning culture. And that's really what I want to get into discussing today. Now, when we look at organisations or businesses, they suffer a number of different challenges. And these often come up in the requirement for doing some training or some learning or some skilling. So we're working in a much more complex and ambiguous world. You need to be more agile in your thinking. And really, you need to provide every employee with the skills to perform their job. Because the challenges they're facing are rapidly changing. They're not going away, as I said before. We've seen a massive change over the last 12 months. This pace of change is increasing all the time. It's not going away. Research shows that companies that learn fastest and adapt well to changing environments will perform the best over time. And I've seen that in some of my customers. Also, some jobs are disappearing due to increasing use of terminology and automation. And the positions are emerging, job positions are emerging that require quick thinking, creativity, also high EQ and ability to use social media. So it makes the ability to learn more important than ever it has been. I always think learning's been important, but I think it's even more important now, creating that learning culture. And I'll describe in a bit what I mean by learning culture. I got some stats here. These are from about 7-8 years ago. Typically, organisations spend around £1,000 per employee on training and development. Smaller organisations tend to spend actually slightly more than larger organisations, up to about £2,000 per employee. Yet despite, this is a huge investment in new people and training people up. And yet despite all those investments, there's really no way of knowing how, or most organisations don't really understand if they're getting true value from that investment or that spend. I'm not going to use investment, I'll use the word spend, that money. They're not getting the money's worth. I have worked with organisations which do espouse a learning culture. But for me, it was all talk. It wasn't action. They talked about it a lot, but then they didn't back it up with some of the things I'm going to talk about later. I've got another stat here. This is another research study. Organisations spend 11% more on training per person than is cost effective. So when you measure the amount, it's not cost effective. It costs more than we're actually getting back. And that was some research a couple of years ago in London. And partly that's the cost of the spending, but it's also the time away from their core job so they're not getting their job done. So there's a huge number of challenges. And when we look at certain topics, such as AI skills, this is actually some stats from the Microsoft AI Skills in the UK report from August last year. This research found that UK is actually lagging behind its global competitors in both use of AI and skilling in AI. And even if we do have spend in AI, we're not as effective. So there's a number of challenges here around skilling, and this just shows it. So 15% of companies claim they're AI pros. So I'm going to take these numbers with a pinch of salt because people always lie in surveys, but it just gives you an idea of where we are. 52% of employees say they're using AI to work faster and smarter. Yeah, I do, but I'm not sure everybody does. But I do think the other two numbers are right. Skills gap. We have a significant skills gap in AI in the UK. And that's only going to increase. And we're actually not doing a very good job of skilling. We're only skilling 17% of UK employees in skilling. But just I want to show you, people acknowledge there's an issue with skilling. We acknowledge this issue, actually what we're doing to get around it. For me, how we actually address this is partly by creating a learning culture, because we can't just take people out of their job and train them. That is no longer an option. We are moving away from traditional learning into a more complex world. So corporate learning isn't what it used to be, when people would just squeeze in a course into their day job, with slow periods. So they'd have a slow period, you go away, do your training. What's happening now is we're getting very much into learning when you need it. Finding out, I need to do something else, I need to learn it then and there in small bite-sized chunks. Or in small chunks rather than taking a week out. So it's becoming the very fabric of work. Again, we've got a stat here. Some people spend nearly 40% of their total work time learning. I've actually got two stats here which clash a lot. This is what some people say. To do their job, they need to learn an awful lot. And that's true. I'm probably like this. I spend an awful lot of my time learning new things, getting hands-on, trying things out, because I'm training new, as things come out, I'm training new stuff, so I have to become proficient in it. And people doing things in their job, they need to learn new things. But we also see some other stats where people say, I'm only spending 1% of my work week is spent on training and development in other scenarios. So we get this situation where some people are having to spend an awful lot of time to learn, possibly not being supported very well. And then also other people are only getting a tiny bit of time to train, and that demotivates people. So we have this different difficulty in training right now and learning. Also, the learning and development resources within organisations do not necessarily provide all the information. 79% say they get their sources outside of learning and development. And if you've done this, there are lots of different online learning. We've got sessions, we've got things like today. It's a great learning resource. So I love community learning sessions and days like this. They're great. They really help. And there's also other sources. And part of the problem is, how do you, as a learner or as an employee, collate all that, where I need to go? I've got all these different sources. What should I use? You can probably spend as much time trying to figure out where my resources are that I can learn from as actually doing the learning itself. And it's also how to actually understand the quality of those. How relevant is it to me? And therefore, when you do a lot of learning, how good is that learning? What's the outcome? How much of all this learning that goes on within an organisation really help people succeed in their role? So we really should be thinking about how we do learning within organisations. The traditional way is no longer relevant to the way business operates today. And for me, learning is incredibly important. If you do not skill up your people, you do not give them the tools to do their job, if you do not empower them to do their job by providing them tools and training them to use those tools properly, they will not be able to react. So companies who have got nimble learners who can react quickly to disruptions, to meet the different changes of customers and the change in the business climate, which is only accelerating, that will become the biggest driver to success of that organisation. It'll allow you to harness the ideas of your employees to create new products, new services, and enhance your processes. So learning is incredibly important to drive the success of an organisation. Now, I've talked about a learning culture, and that's the purpose of the talk today. But what do I mean by a learning culture? I've pulled off a couple of quotes here. So the first one, a learning culture is a collection of organisational conventions, values, practices and processes to encourage employees to develop knowledge and competence. An organisation with learning culture encourages continuous learning and believes that systems influence each other. There's a couple of things I want to pull out from that statement. It's the continuous learning is very important. Learning culture encourages that continuous learning. Okay, for me, that's incredibly important in what we mean by a learning culture, the desire to learn and the continual learning process. The other statement here says a learning culture consists of a community of workers with a growth mindset. You might recognise where that comes from. Microsoft used this term, a growth mindset. So people want to not only want to learn and apply what they've learned to help their organisation, they feel compelled to share their knowledge with others. So for me, this sharing, so we've got continuous learning on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, it's about wanting to learn and then wanting to share. For me, that's these three things are the essence of a learning culture. You've got to give people or encourage people to learn, to share what they've learned and continuously learn. Those three things are really, really, for me, what a learning culture is. So how do we create a learning culture? It sounds so easy. It's not. And I'm going to describe what a learning culture is. I'm going to describe what's involved in setting up a learning culture. I'm going to give you some resources to look at as well. So for me, it's about nurturing a mindset. And this again comes from that growth mindset, believes that intelligence can be developed, desire to learn, and to carry on learning despite challenges that you might face, getting feedback and improving your learning, and also finding inspiration from others and inspiring others to learn. I'll tell you about an organisation I once worked with. I worked with an organisation. They said they had a learning culture People were encouraged. Well, they had sent people on a training course. They did this classic, off you go on a training course. They had investors in people certification. They had all the ISO standards. There are lots of things. But when I actually spoke to somebody who wanted to actually expand their skills, they were an exchange administrator. They wanted to learn SQL and expand their knowledge as a person. And they were using SQL in that organisation. I'll go back a few years ago now. But when they came to say, okay, will you help me learn? They said, well, it's not your job. When they said, will you buy me a book? They said, no. She learnt on her way. She actually learnt over several months. I helped her pick out some material, and she basically learnt reading books on the train on her way when she was commuting. That was her learning space. She wasn't given any time at work. We'll talk about that in a minute, about giving people space. She wasn't given any time at work. And when it came to the certification exams, she said, because I was encouraging her to take the certification exams, she asked for the organisation to pay for them. And they said no. And for me, they had a lot of words. They said a lot of things, but they didn't follow through. They didn't encourage learning outside of your limited job role, what they felt you needed to do the job. They had a large internal training. So most training was done internally. They had internal trainers because they were running a call centre with hundreds of people. But when it came to getting people to do their job better, they weren't really interested. And for me, that's not what a learning culture is. A learning culture, I'm going to try and describe this, what it is and how to create it. And for me, I love this. Never stop learning. This is the hashtag I use a lot. Continuous learning, continuously improving yourself is the secret to both you personally, your personal development, but also to assist your organisation. So first I'm going to define the difference between a learning culture, learning organisation and a learning climate. It's just a little thing, but I just want to, because we're going to focus on learning culture. So a learning culture is about, for me, it's embedding learning into everything you do as an organisation, giving you the resources, the capability to learn. It's about promoting and rewarding people at all levels within an organisation. Okay, that's what a learning culture is to me. It's embedding it within the organisation. A learning organisation may be the part of a company or business that supports that learning. Okay, so their job with it. So you look at a learning development department or an HR department. Their role, part of their role, is to support people in this. Traditionally, it's been to say they're just their job. The learning part of the organisation, or L&D department, whatever it is, their job was to do the training, and that's what they were concerned with. For me, they should now be enablers for the rest of the business rather than controlling it. So they're there to support the transformation, allowing people to develop, allowing the organisation to develop. But traditionally, it's been held on to by that central department. And then we have a learning climate. This is how employees perceive the workplace and what's going on. So you may hear people talk about learning climate. What's my learning climate? So how do we create a learning culture? Okay. The way learning takes place within an organisation has changed. It's no longer about that single course or workshop that employees must take. It's more than that. It's about continuous learning for me, and creating a culture of learning to support that. Developing a learning culture does take a lot of time and effort. It's not simple, but it is worth the investment. Okay, do not shy away from it. It's not a simple thing. It's not. Every company has a culture, even if they don't realise it. They have various different cultures embedded in organisations already. So you have to go through that change process to change the learning culture. And what I've got is 8 ways of creating a learning culture. Let's start with the first one. And for me, this is incredibly important. And really, this is where you must start. It's about making learning a core organisational value. It's not something you pay lip service. I know people say learning is important. No. To build a successful learning culture, employees need to feel that leadership supports it. And one way you can do that is by making learning a clearly defined core value. Core values drive decision making, but within an organisation, they drive action So by having that value stated as a core organisational value, it means there's going to be a commitment to learning within that organisation at all levels. It also means by saying it's more than just saying it's a value. You've then got to stand by it and commit resources. So it's a commitment to providing the necessary resources to support learning. And that may not be money. The money is in time. It's going to be in time. It's going to be in encouragement. It's going to be in the things I'm going to talk about next. So you do need to make a commitment to say it's making a value, and then stand by that commitment, and then give or supply and enable, which we're going to talk about in terms of resources within your organisation at all levels. But core values drive actions and allow people to do things. Next, I have developed personalised learning plans. You can't just have everybody has to do this. Having personalised learning plans means they're relevant to the employee. I talked earlier about things where learning was imposed on people. That doesn't go down well. People really resent being taken away from their job or being forced to do things that aren't relevant to them. I know I've had it done to me in the past. As I said, sent on a Unix administrator course when I didn't learn anything. So creating a personalised learning plan turns training into a learning journey. We set goals for people, learning goals, and then create a strategic plan to allow them to get to those goals. If you do that, the employee will be more engaged in the process of learning. Okay, it's no longer about completing a course and ticking a box. It's about the employee seeing the bigger picture. It's about supporting that employee to help them with their own goals and their own ambitions. Because employees have their own career goals. So I'll take the example I gave earlier where this exchange admin, she wants to learn SQL and become broader in her knowledge. She wants to go from increase to sort of expert level and become like that person who could be the go-to person. That's what she was aiming to be. It was for the better of the company. But she had those goals. She had those career aims. And she wasn't supported in that. And she needed somebody to... So I basically did this with her. We set out what I thought she should do. And she did it in her own time. Because many people want to learn. I think this is a mistake a lot of people, organisations think. They don't understand that people have a desire to learn. It's a human thing to want to be better at what you do, to learn more. So personalised learning plans are really important. You also, this again, people forget this. People need a coach. They need some sort of mentor. Okay. Learning, it can be really hard. It's hard to motivate yourself. It's hard to carry on when you've been doing it for weeks and it's in the middle of winter, you're in the rain, you're on the train, got your book out, learning. So a lot of people may want to have their career goals, and you need to maybe help them get to those, understand what they need to do. You want to give one-to-one coaching and mentoring, so they help people understand where they can go with the skills that they learn, what it actually means to them. So this is related to the personalised learning plans. The best, I once worked, when I came out of university, I worked for a company. They were really good at this. We had 6 monthly reviews where I would go to my manager. We would talk about what my goals were, what training I wanted to go on. I could actually say, I want to go on this training. And then he would say, no, maybe this training might be better for you. Because again, on that organisation, we would do training. Basically, we were starting on a new project. You need to get trained in that. We used to call it classic consulting. You learn something and then you go implement it. That's what I did at the beginning of my career. You learned a lot, did it, and then other things. But I wanted to be better. I wanted to learn about. There were certain things I picked up. I said I wanted to go away and learn about database design and data modelling, and so I was able to suggest a couple of courses that I wanted to go on, because I said I identified my route through an organisation. I wanted to go on a technical route rather than a project management route. And that meant I needed somebody to mentor me through that and coach me and guide me as to where to go, because you don't know everything as a junior employee. So it's and also I think nowadays a coach's role will be to point you to the right relevant learning materials, guide them to the available resources, and hold their hands. But it's also a coach is more it's not just coaching and mentoring. You've got to hold the learner accountable. This is something about a learning culture. You can't just say, oh, here's your learning plan, off you go. You need to mentor them, but then you need to make sure people are doing it. You need to hold them accountable. We also need to lead by example. Organizational leaders need to do this themselves. If somebody says, yes, we're doing learning, but it's only for the junior staff or the new employees, then it's really, you're not doing a learning culture. Learning is at all levels. One thing I read, which was quite interesting, CEOs on average read one book a month. Their learning is, CEOs' learning is quite different, but they're going away reading stuff or maybe even writing a book to express what they know. So having your leaders, your managers, your senior executives involved in learning is important. I know when I've been involved in implementing Dynamics, I've always encouraged the CEOs, the finance directors, the sales directors to come on the training. They don't like it, but I think it's really because they think, oh, I won't be using the system, but it's important that they're there during the training because then actually they'll see some of the issues and some of the questions that come up from their staff. Because when I do projects, it's about change management, really, the training. It's about changing how people work, and we need the senior managers there to actually enhance that change process. So leading by example encourages other people, encourages everybody else through the organization. So as a leader within your organization, you should set your own learning goals. You should talk about the training that you've undertaken. Be open about that with other people, and also tell people about the mistakes you've made in training. And I'm quite happy to talk about some of the things I've done in the past and some of the bad experiences I've had where my training hasn't been very successful because I'll give you an example. I went on a course to learn about how to use SharePoint and Dynamics. I spent a whole week learning how to follow instructions in a manual. I came away from that not knowing what to do. I had no clue what I was doing while I was there. It wasn't explained. I wasn't given the big picture. It was just, here's how you do it. That was a good example of a training course for me that didn't work. And I often talk about other training scenarios, which I'm a bad learner in some respects because I'll just do the minimum possible. But I'll talk about where I'm going and I'm leading. And if I was in an organisation, I would talk to the company. If maybe we have a town hall meeting, I'll talk about what I've been learning and how I've gone around that learning, just to enforce or enhance that idea of a learning culture. Right, number 5, rewards. For me, it's a bit of a stick and carrot learning. You need to reward people. Now, this doesn't mean money. It doesn't mean, okay, I know some of these companies do this, you pass a certification, they give you a bonus, and that's all well and good. But for a lot of people, that's not really why they learn. So when introduced correctly or rightly, rewards can go a long way into building a learning culture. This might be soft rewards like publicly acknowledging people. Say, yes, Julian's done this training this month, he's been great. So I think, and often that goes a long way. You actually see people now posting on LinkedIn. So everybody boasting about, or I've got this badge. I mean, people love badges. I love badges. So using give people badges, your own badging scheme if you want to say what we want. Microsoft do this quite well. You may see Microsoft internally. Microsoft give little rewards if you've done things, little badges for internal training courses, not to do with certifications, just you've completed a course. So you really want to celebrate people's or learners' success. And yes, you can include financial incentives as well. And if you're using a learning management system, many of those systems do have badge systems. Or you can use your Acclaim that Microsoft does. Any organisation can sign up for your Acclaim and use that for badges. So rewards don't need to be expensive. but you really want to be giving rewards, formal rewards to support those learning efforts of people and to develop a culture of learning. Having the right environment. Okay, there's many different learning platforms are out there. You can sign up with them. LinkedIn Learning is a good example of a learning environment. You've got Pluralsight, you've got Microsoft Learn. But there are a lot of learning management systems that companies run themselves. The learning environment that you should use should help facilitate and support learning. There are some poor learning management systems out there I've seen. It should be easy to use, allow people to not share knowledge, which I'm going to come to, and also allow people to interact. Because sharing is incredibly important in learning. There's some research on how people learn best. People actually learn best from peers. So peer-to-peer learning is one of the most effective ways of learning new skills or learning new processes. Just reading a book or watching a video or listening to me stand up in front of it on a podium talking to you gets you some way, but we've actually seen that peer-to-peer learning is often the most effective. So sharing knowledge, sharing experiences is really part of that learning culture. Informal, so within this I'm talking about maybe setting up some informal learning and social learning rather than your regimented learning thing. So both that informal, the little get-togethers, the little sharing sessions. For instance, I run a community study groups. So we get together. We've been running one for the PL 900 recently. Last session's on Sunday, or was last Sunday. We get together for an hour every Sunday morning, 8 a.m. and every Thursday evening, 8 p.m. And we go through the exam. I lead it, but hopefully people contribute and we get some discussion going. So we get that knowledge sharing. So that's an informal, people come and go. They can't, because not everybody can make every session. We also see some of the user groups they've done. I'm also organising a Certification Saturday event on the 10th of April, where we're going to have people share their experiences of different learning. We ran it last December. We had we had 400 people come along about learning. We talked about different learning methods, different learning resources, as well as looking at individual certification exams. And we'll be doing it again on April the 10th if you're interested. So look for Certification Saturday for that. So yes, for me, this sharing is probably as important probably more important than some of the others for me, because it helps people get engaged. If they see other people sharing, it drives everybody else's behaviour. And hiring, embed it into your hiring process. Okay, make sure you hire the right people. Make sure as part of your recruitment, you should ask how open people are to learning. It actually will help in your recruitment. So, for instance, it's one of the things where I looked at. I've had a number of people try to recruit me over the years, and one thing I always ask is, what's training? How do you do learning? Am I able to go away and are you going to give me time to learn new things, or do I have to do it on the job? I want to know I'm going to be supported in my learning and my own career development. So let's look now at a good example. An organisation all of us know, Microsoft. Microsoft has embraced a learning culture. And let's talk about some of the things we talked about going back. Learning is a top 5 priority within Microsoft, and that's completely changed the way Microsoft thinks about training, learning, skilling. Okay, you may have heard Microsoft talk about tech intensity, which is tech adoption and tech capacity, because Microsoft realizes that to be more successful, they actually turned their sales organization on its head about 3 years ago. They said to our sales organization, your customer facing staff, that you need to shift from just servicing customers to actually advising about technology. So it sparked a massive investment in learning and education within Microsoft. Okay, so they now have continued education. One of the real things that I really love about what Microsoft has done is they've given people space to learn. This is again it's probably the 9th thing. I only had 8 slots, and I would have added this one into the previous slides if I could, but I want to bring it out here. It's giving people the space to learn, not just saying you're going to do it as part of your job in your own time. Microsoft does this. They give a whole day each quarter dedicated to learning, and I do some of these days with Microsoft staff in the UK, where we have like a learning day, and we take a topic and learn it. And it's not just technical things; it can be other non-technical things. People can choose what they want to learn, and they're supported properly with it. Okay, and also Microsoft has actually encouraged people to take certifications. Every customer-facing employee in Microsoft has to pass an exam, or at least one exam a year now. So they're doing the fundamentals, and actually some of them have gone on. There's actually I trained somebody who worked in the Microsoft store in London. He's gone on to take about 7 or 8 exams now. He's way off. He's gone into doing lots of different things, and he's changed his whole career as a result from being somebody who's employed as essentially to guide somebody's store. He's now I'm not sure what role Jack's doing now. He's a great example of by given that space to learn, he's been able to really take his career off in a completely different direction, one he probably could never have imagined. Okay, so for me, that's been a really good time, giving people the space to learn. And the other thing that Microsoft do is they gather insights. Microsoft's a very data-driven organisation, so they're using data and AI to try and support learning and identify what people need and want. And I've got a link here. I'll just show you this. I'll put the link here. I'll just show you this slide deck. This page, just so you go have a quick look at it. So this is part of Microsoft's commitment to learning, not just for themselves, but also for yourself. So there's lots of really good information for you as a person and also as an organisation in learnings out there. And they've got a number of campaigns. Get on 2021, digital skilling weeks, really good set of resources for you to start your own learning as an organisation. Microsoft has just announced a new employee experience platform called Microsoft Viva. This brings together communications, knowledge, learning and resources all together within Microsoft Teams. And one of the 4 products within Microsoft Viva is Microsoft Viva Learning. Microsoft had sort of talked about this last year. We were really interested in what it is. I was quite excited when I saw it. Because what Viva Learning does is it gives that curated list of learning. You can go access learning from within Microsoft Teams. It tracks what you're doing. It suggests learning to you. It allows you to do the collaboration, to do that sharing. For me, it's actually a great product for helping you embed a learning culture in your organisation. It's going to make it easy for people to manage it, because right now some learning management systems are hard to use or even choose which one you want to use. So it's something to go have a look at. I've got the link here. Let's have a quick look at that page. The key message I think on this page, right at the top there, make learning a natural part of the workday. For me, that's really sums up what learning culture is. So go have a look at it. It's available in private preview now. You can request to go on it. So what can you do as yourself? For me, I would look at a number of different things. Go encourage people to learn. Provide space for people to learn. Encourage that sharing and look at how you reward people. Those, if you're going to do anything, those are the 4 key things for me to encourage that ability to go away and learn. I put a little link in there. It's got like to a blog post which talks about 20 steps to start learning. It's another good resource for you. Right. So to sum up, try and create a learning culture within your organisation. I've given you some resources. I've given you some tips on what to do. Right, if you've kept listening to me for the last 40 minutes or so, you can now win a copy of my book. Just enter your name in the chat. I've got 2 copies to give away, 2 physical copies. Just enter your name in the chat and we'll do a draw after this session. And if you're a winner, I'll get in contact. I'll need your name, email address and physical address. You need to have registered on here for me to find you. So you need a ticket. If you haven't got one, you won't be able to enter. So go ahead and do that for me. And we'll see who wins. Good luck. So thank you very much. Just to let you know, actually this is a picture of me down here at the front. just there, third from the right, from last year's summit. This video will be uploaded in about 14 days to YouTube, so the beginning of April. So thank you very much, and good luck with your learning.